Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Open with your host, myself, Joel Blake OBE. It's a pleasure to be with you here again today. Today, it's a really great opportunity to really dive into an area that is so important to all of us, kind of health, fitness, and business, and the combination of all those three things. So today, I am so ecstatic, and I'm really, really happy and genuinely pleased to introduce Justin Musgrove. Justin, how are you? Are you well?
Very well, Joel. How are you?
I'm very well. I think as we were talking just offline, weren't we? The sun's shining today, so it brings everyone's spirits up and it makes it...
Absolutely, yeah. Looking forward to a good chat with you and see where it takes us.
Absolutely, me too. Well, look, let's just dive straight into it. I think, there's so much we've got to discuss, and I think there's so many gems I really want to try and tease out really for our audience. But I'll start by just asking, tell us a bit about yourself, but within that, please, could you explain what is your why? Why do you do what you do?
Good question. I've been in the sort of leisure industry for 35 years now, so I'm well versed with the likes of Center Parcs and fitness and wellness and hotels. But when you asked me this question, I was thinking, that is a really deep question, and the industry,
Kind of guy, sorry.
the industry will tell us that it's about getting more people more active more often. And I sort of subscribe to that because we know about the societal challenges of the NHS and GPs, diabetes, mental health, and therefore the industry in which I work, we've just got such a huge opportunity to play a great contributory role in trying to address those challenges.
Fantastic. And so tell us a little bit about the kind of your journey, if you like, just give us a synopsis of, where you started, where you are, and what you're doing now, that'd be really great to hear.
Yeah. I started life in Center Parcs. So I was there for 20 years, and it was a fabulous Dutch company that then became owned ultimately by private equity. And through that journey, there were many owners. So we saw family ownership, and then we eventually saw Blackstone and Brookfield, etc., the big boys from Canada and the US. So we saw a very, very varied array of owners. And then I moved on to work with a serial entrepreneur, Duncan Bannatyne, and eventually led his estate for the last 5 years of my 12-year tenure, running primarily about 70 health clubs, 50 spas, 4 hotels. And that was a phenomenal experience, working with Duncan as well, which had its challenges, as you probably can imagine. But a great learning experience. And then it was time to try something new, and literally up sticks, packed my bags, left the family in the UK and disappeared to Saudi Arabia for 4 years, and COVID happened. Worked for a listed company in Saudi Arabia covering UAE as well. Largest gym chain in the Middle East, listed on the Tadal Stock Exchange. And then I went to work for a wealthy sheikh who wanted me to run ultra luxury health and wellness and social clubs. And then finally I returned to the UK in 2023. Fitness first, took on the chief executive role there, really with a view to turning one of the absolutely most well-known gym chains in the world,
Yeah, totally.
trying to spin it round from a near administration position and get it solvent again, and working with a team there who'd done a great job to get it to survive. And then after 2 years of that, I thought it's time to do my own thing. So that's where we are now, and I've got a lot to give, got a lot to offer, and the OpenIntro platform seemed perfect opportunity for me to share a lot of expertise, a lot of experience, whether it be Middle East, UK, that whole plethora of wellness solutions from hotels, gyms, spas, and all the rest.
Excellent. No, I mean, we're going to get into some of that, especially that, just shift into a whole new culture, another part of the world, and the pace of change out there, certainly. But I think, one thing that's always important in any business is the fundamental ingredients that make it really work. And obviously a huge part of that is people. What's been your experience in all the businesses that you've been involved in, and your experiences in terms of how to really get the best out of people?
Just lost you there for a second, Joel.
Yeah, so I was just asking, what's in terms of all the work that you've done, what's been, I guess, what would say would be your best advice in terms of how to get the best out of people? Because they're fundamental to any business, and you just seem to have had such a breadth of experience, which must have meant really with dealing with a lot of different people.
Yeah, I give my sort of credit to Center Parcs because they gave such fantastic training sort of 30 years ago, and they really recognised that the people were the main ingredient of their experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that training was really, external training, external providers was really quite intense, and that has carried me through a lifetime. So I'm always forever grateful for what that company did for me. And back to your question, really, is that they are the most important ingredient in my experience, and therefore getting the most out of your team. It's all about the culture, and setting the right foundations for the team to thrive and to enjoy their work and to contribute, because it's not about the boss. The boss is the orchestral conductor, but
Mm-hmm.
actually there's no sound comes from the conductor. The sound comes from the orchestra, and
Great analogy.
that's my sort of simple analogy, that getting the right player. My dad was a great influence on me, and he gave me the mantra of always surround yourself with great people.
Mm.
So I don't suffer fools, but I've always made sure that I'm trying to optimize, starting with the leadership team and then moving our way, because you get great leaders, they then recruit great middle management, then create a great front line. So the people aspect for me was always fundamental, and creating a fantastic environment in which to, the frontline cleaner in the changing rooms. He's probably the guy who speaks to the members or the guests most.
That's the
So
thing, the
yeah,
people, and it's such a simple example, isn't it? But it's so powerful. I mean, certainly even in my experience, I was always taught, shake the security guard's hand, say hello to the cleaner, you know, when you're actually going into a meeting, make sure you're saying hello to the PA, the receptionist, because those are individuals that see all the things that you don't always see.
yeah,
They
yeah.
know who to speak to, and particularly, they're the gatekeepers in many, many different ways. So I think the ability to connect with people is important. But I also think you're absolutely right as well in terms of the culture. You have to almost create a culture that enables people to feel that they can be their best selves in the organization. But from a health and fitness industry point of view, how have you seen that transpire and reveal itself in terms of that type of inclusive and engaging culture?
Well, the industry has been seen in two halves, really. Typically, gyms used to, the ownership of gyms. A lot of gym owners used to keep the financial data
Okay.
to leadership levels only. And actually, the site management, store managers, if you want to call them that, gym managers, were only privy to sort of sales data.
Mm,
So when I joined Fitness First as a good example, that was the culture, and I
okay.
said that the first thing I need to change is to bring everybody on board with us here. Right down to profit and loss statements, and we want to incentivize these people to actually perform, and not just expect them just to run the gym, keep them clean, see the sales data. To actually see what the energy costs are, see what the recruitment costs are, because they're more likely to switch the air conditioning off when the studio's empty. Yeah. And when we give them a bonus at the end of the year or quarterly to say, your profits are better than this time last year, and you're 5-10% up, there's something in it for them.
Yeah.
So that needs training, that needs education. Some people don't make the grade, being honest. I think it was about 15% of when we gave that sort of empowerment to site managers. Some of them just, some of them couldn't do it.
Mm,
So there was a little bit of fallout, but ultimately you look for then 2 years down the line, and you've got a very empowered, business-focused organization with a culture that wants to succeed,
yeah.
and recognizing that our industry is really blighted by its churn. Gym members, they come and they go, and that is one of the single biggest challenges is retention. So when you empower the site manager and their team and get them working as a unit, you tend to see the reaction from the customer saying, "Wow, what's changed?
Yeah.
Something's definitely changed here. There's a real focus on taking care of me here. I'm not just paying my 40 or 50
Sense of
pounds."
unity is in there, and there's consistency, and that
Yeah,
helps with the brand value, doesn't it, in that regard? Yeah.
yeah, very much so. So empowerment was really, really a huge part of what we did, and also trusting your people. I mean, you can't trust everybody, of course you can't, but trusting majority of your people to get on and do a good job is not always. It can't always be about checking. Checking's important, don't get me wrong, but it can't always be about that. You've got to let your guys go, make a few mistakes, but more often than not, they're going to do a tremendous job. And that sort of sense of relaxation, that nice working environment where there's that relaxation, let them flow, let them be human people, not let them be too prescribed and having to say certain phrases, the old McDonald's, it's just, we are an industry of human beings and people, and letting people do their thing. And there'll be good people and not so good people, but that's life.
Yeah, that's a really great point, isn't it? I think, we've all been through a torrid time in business over the last few years, and, depending on how long your experience is, some things are new, some things are not new. There's just cycles of things that happen, I
Yeah,
guess. But in some way, I think the last, I'd say 5 years, well, certainly from COVID onwards, there's a sense of human-centeredness crept back into business.
yeah,
Um, Maybe because everyone was so affected by the pandemic in that regard that it forced everyone to look at themselves differently,
yeah,
both in terms of their relationships with their immediate family, friends, but probably more importantly themselves, because that sense of isolation, even within your own family structure, still is a bit uncomfortable for many people. And then when you want to go back out into the world of work and you can't, if it's part of your identity, it becomes a challenge. But when that happened during the kind of the fitness era and in the fitness sector, how did you cope with the I guess the COVID years in that regard when it came to people not being able to physically visit gyms anymore?
I mean, the really brilliant spin-off, if there was a spin-off of COVID, was that health and well-being became front and center, didn't it? Everybody was worried about their personal families, taking care of themselves. It became very evident very early on that if you were fitter and healthier, you had a much greater chance of survival. And doesn't seem that long ago when we were thinking like that. And we saw, gyms had to close. That was and I was in Saudi at the time, and gyms were the first things to close, and they were the last things to reopen. So it was
Yeah.
terrible. It was decimating for the fitness industry. But what it did do is people started doing their own thing, didn't they? They started buying bikes for home. They started buying a few dumbbells. They started watching Joe Wicks. It created a real cultural shift towards, geez, I really need to take care of myself. And we'd not really had that before. And our industry globally had been seen as a nice to have. You don't really have to be a gym member. You can go and run in the park. You can go and use the equipment in the park, and you don't need to do it. And I think after COVID, I think the industry now, even the WHO now, class our industry as an essential.
Excellent.
And you've seen that follow through with the Generation Z millennials now. It's such a different landscape to what it was 5 years ago. Yeah, you've got the even my own kids in the 20s. They're not out on the town on Friday nights. Sometimes they're in the gym on a Friday night, or they're
It's fascinating,
yeah.
isn't it?
One's vegan, so she doesn't want to eat meat anymore, and alcohol. I can't force them an alcoholic drink down the throat. So
It's funny. I was having a similar conversation with my son the other day. He's 24, and he goes, "No, when he goes at this group of friends, and it's a real diverse group of friends, they go to places where it's like darts and drinks, or
yeah,
football or drinks. There's some type of social activity. It's not about
yeah,
getting drink to get bladdered anymore.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
about that sense of community around social. And I mean, my son's is a health freak in that regard. So yeah, anything to do with health is there
yeah.
anyway. But having a group of friends that are similar in that social aspect of it's fascinating. And
Yeah, community's become a really big word, hasn't it?
yeah,
It's
it's
been
huge.
really, really important for our industry as well that we don't just do things in the gym. We have running clubs, we have things that are
Mm,
outside, we have social arrangements, we have charitable ventures. So it's the community's become a really important part of our industry as well. So
mm.
yeah, so COVID was difficult, but you look back and a lot of positive has come out of what was a very tragic few years for us.
Absolute. And you mentioned something when you were talking there about this kind of sense of people taking the time to learn and to do things for themselves, and that sense of self-education around their own health.
Yeah,
And the trigger of the pandemic almost being a new pathway that it sent people down.
yeah.
Um, but in terms of the evolution of that kind of educational piece, How have you seen businesses themselves educate themselves around how they need to operate in this new world, particularly those in the health and fitness industry?
Yeah, they use this sort of phrase, I don't particularly like it, phygital, which is a combination of physical and digital. So you've seen that now with a lot of digital
I don't like it
content.
either.
No, no, no.
But I get the context.
It's the blend, isn't it?
Yeah,
And there are some successful businesses out there. You
yeah,
know, you've heard of Peloton in the US and companies like Apex Rides in the UK doing similar things with instructor-led classes via your tablet, your mobile phone. You don't need to go to the gym. You can do things from home. And now there are treadmills and more economical things being brought into the home. And just there's a fantastic groundswell of activities out there. Even where I live locally, there's 50, 60-year-old guys doing Ironman and mini triathlons, and there's a fantastic array of new things to do out there, which are fun, hard work, need a lot of training. And I know that's not for everybody, but on this sort of elite side of things, we saw the 2012 Olympics and the spin-off of that. So there's so many great initiatives outside of the bricks and mortars of a gym that are still taking place today, and nutrition, mental health, access to GPs through digital services as well. So at Fitness First, we'd launched a service called through Health Hero, which was providing access to a GP on the same day. And it would be via Zoom or it would be via phone call. But it guaranteed you could speak to a GP today. And it was a phenomenal service. You could also see a physiotherapist, a mental health coach, or a nutritionist. And this service was a small premium on top of their membership. And we all know how difficult it is to get hold of a GP these days. So digital has become quite an important part of the industry as well, whether it be people just subscribing to services and working out at home and keeping healthy and fit, or whether they've been gym members and actually getting these sort of really excellent services on top.
Do you see the evolution of the business models in the health and fitness sector kind of accelerating down that route forevermore, or do you think there's still going to be a place for that real physical engagement?
I don't think digital will replace physical for sure. The bricks and mortar are more popular than ever. They're back to sort of pre-COVID levels and rising. Yeah, I think of the UK population, latest data from Leisure Database Company is that 17% of the population are now gym members. So whether that's public sector, private sector, which is risen in the last couple of years from 15%, the US are sort of 22% plus, so nearly a quarter of their population now is gym members. Scandinavia is quite high as well. So we've got this real movement to get people healthy, whether it's in the bricks and mortar or whether it's people working from home.
Fantastic. Because obviously AI is just, getting into every single sector and space. And as you say, a lot of the kind of physical, digital combinations of things are happening. But how does that work, I guess, in the more wealthier spaces and the higher end? You mentioned when you went out to Saudi, that was kind of the focus of that area. Did you see much adoption of technology in that higher echelons, if you like, of the fitness industry?
Yeah, I mean, Saudi was quite sort of it was an emerging market there. Ladies, for instance, have only just been allowed to drive cars and be gym members. So there was a real change in society there, which created a real boom to the health and well-being sector. So a really big change took place there, and actually of Saudi, I think it was the stat was, and you see various stats, but about 70% of the population are sort of 35 years and younger. So you've got a supercharged digital enabled society using apps for absolutely everything. From ordering, food to their sort of laundry services to their fitness, really supercharged digital society. They have this vision 2030 of getting everybody fit, healthy, and productive. So that was a fantastic learning for me, and the takeaway for here back in the UK is how we embrace AI and the data and use the data. I'm looking very closely. I mean, we've all been quite fixated on Generation Z and Millennial, but I'm quite interested to look at the Gen Alphas now because they're 16 years of age and below. I think it's 8 to 16.
Sure.
And these guys are on a different plateau on the digital enablement, and are going to expect from operators like us to provide data like you've never seen it before on their their body composition, their VO2 max,
Yeah,
their
yeah.
body fat percentage, their park run personal bests. I'm trying to give you a
No,
varied sort
I
of
totally
blend of
get it.
KPIs.
It's got to be a data-driven society, isn't
It
it?
is, it
From
is,
that, from that
and I don't think any of us have quite worked out AI. If I'll be really brutally honest, we're all getting a bit every month. We're getting more savvy. It clearly has advantages for industries like HR and legal, where the data is all there. It pulls it all in. It produces a letter. But the fitness industry, it's actually about how we harness the KPI, the data that's being generated. A lot of fitness equipment now is starting to come out with tracking that data using your. People don't want to buy new wearables. They've got an Apple Watch or a Garmin watch or an Android watch. They want it to use, they want the data coming from the
yeah,
provider into their gadget of choice, and
yeah.
not to have to buy another wearable, three things on your arm. So that's becoming the responsibility of operators to provide that for the last batch of Gen Zs and the new Gen Alphas coming in. So there's going to be a big requirement to provide a lot of data for these people.
I wonder how much, I guess, thought there is into the governance of AI in that industry, because the proliferation of data that's got to come through is going to require really robust structures of managing that data, protecting people's data, protecting people themselves and their privacy, etc. And I don't often see enough talk around governance in AI in that space. But it strikes me that the level of innovation that's going to be needed in that space because of data and the demands from customers is going to require a lot more robust infrastructure for
Yeah.
organizations and operators to deal with, I think.
Yeah, I think that the UK, as I read, seem to be leading the way in terms of getting that infrastructure and governance in place. But I think we're still at the very early stage of that, aren't we? We've still got a long way to go.
Mm.
We know the US are leading a lot of the AI, and so are China. But I think we've recognised very quickly. We're obviously very strong on GDPR.
Yeah.
Lots of the commissioner and information people are, it's fairly well managed in this country, I believe. So I think AI will be well managed, and will probably lead a lot of markets on how we tackle AI. But I think you're absolutely right. It's still very early days. There are vulnerabilities right now. People don't still fully understand it, and businesses are going to need to invest in AI experts in the future, I believe. Whilst we might be losing some of the HR or the legal, we're going to be needing to bring in the AI experts and the governance people to make sure we do it properly.
Do you think it's more evolution or revolution in terms of these challenges for the industry, particularly with AI and digital enablement?
I still think it's evolution right now.
Mm.
I think can you survive without AI? Of course you can.
Yeah.
But would you be a fool to ignore it? Probably you will be. So for me, it's still evolving, and still a lot of unanswered questions as well, and people getting to grips with it. But I think other industries are far further down the line. Real estate are using AI now to find locations for new sites,
Mm.
and not necessarily having the people going out scouring looking for venues. The data's there through all the estate agent network. So
Mm.
there are industries where you can see that it's got a very early and quick win. Our industry is very people led.
Yeah, yeah.
And I still believe, the days of a personal trainer will be here for many, many years to come, because, who can give you that sort of motivation to go and do that extra 10 reps, and you're
I
not going to
hear
get
that.
it from your phone or your tablet, that's for sure.
I hear that. Yep. And thinking about the pain that my PT has given me over the years, I totally hear that. There's almost a sadist approach to it. It's kind of like it's gonna hurt, but you know what? I'm gonna fight for the pay because the reward is always positive and great. Um, and I guess in that way, you've gone through a bit of a journey yourself in terms of all your experience to where you are now and what you want to do next. You mentioned you want to do a bit more advisory work. You want to kind of get more involved in new things, trying to, what does that look like for you, moving forward properly? Are you looking for another another career again, or is it just more about just sharing your experience and see where that takes you?
I think some of the companies I'm involved with at the moment have been, they're some of them are startup companies. One that I'm working with called Stance Fitness have been going about 3 years. They got their TechStars accelerator funding, so they clearly were seen as great potential. And for me, it's about the connection with the founders, and also can I bring value to the proposition, to the party. And if I can't answer that, if I can't say 100% yes to that, then I won't want to waste anybody's time or money. So for me, it's about getting excited about projects like that. Also, established companies who are wanting to, you've raised AI as a good example. How does that influence how can that play a part in our industry? So no, I'm looking for quite a varied array of assignments that really stimulate me personally, and where I can share that experience of sort of 30 years in the industry.
Yeah.
I remember one of my old tutors. What did he say? 30 years experience. What does that actually mean? Is it 1 year repeated 30 times, or is it 30?
And what do
Is
you
it?
think after all that? What do you think all these years?
I think it's a blend, isn't it? I think
Oh, that's a very diplomatic answer there, Justin.
I think it's a blend. I mean, have you got 30 individual years of No, you haven't, because you've repeated some years, and some years have been
Yeah, fair.
backs to the wall. But
Yeah.
I think for every new assignment, every company you work for, every different role, every project that's new is experience, and that certainly can shortcut a lot of businesses' route to market, route to success, if you can help them. Instead of going through A, B, C's right through to Z, you can go A to T, and
Yeah.
almost chop out the learning bits that we've all been through, and spare the agony and the cost by
Yeah.
shaping those shortcuts. And so no, experience is an interesting one, but also your goal is just to bring these companies on as quickly as possible. Their goal is to many of the ones I'm talking to at the moment, they are wanting to really accelerate and get to a point where they can sell.
Mm.
And that's being very honest, and they're not hiding behind a veil saying, oh yeah, let's get as big as we. No, they're
They're
actually
very
their
clear.
mission is to sell.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's great, that's fine. And other companies are no, we want to really, we want to go beyond the UK boundary. We want to go international, and some of them are saying we want to go global. So it's a real interesting portfolio of opportunities where you really can help expedite and connect people. That's the other thing is your black book,
Mm,
your
mm,
black book of connections
mm.
in multi territories. During COVID, we actually didn't want to sit on our backsides where in Saudi. We had to be almost for one period. We were stuck in our apartments. They almost lock your
Yeah,
door.
yeah,
So there were roadblocks. The only place you could go was once a day to a supermarket.
yeah.
And there was a few of us who, a guy from Australia, a guy from London, a guy from Ireland, a team in the US. We created a global alliance of experts to try and get the fitness industry open as quickly as possible to start addressing the
Amazing.
downsides of COVID.
Really good.
So this international group of people came together, and in their own time, all voluntary, we're trying to just expedite getting this industry going again. So there are examples of connections being really important.
You strike me that you're very, very purpose driven and very, very focused around what it is that you're trying to achieve and being unapologetic about it. And that's how it should be in that sense. But I also see that sense of connection and community is really, really important to you.
Yeah.
It seems to have really woven into all aspects of your organizations you work for and the stuff that you've done, which is absolutely important. And I think, one of the things, talk about that human centeredness approach earlier, many startup founders, certainly I find in the ones that I work with, where sometimes they can be so ruthless about what they want to achieve, they forget to take people with them.
Yeah.
They forget about the importance of those relationships. It's almost like I need that relationship to get me to that point, and then at that point, it's no longer necessary. And I'm always a great believer that don't forget who took you on that journey. Don't
Mm.
forget those who opened that door. Don't forget those ones who put themselves on the line for you. You know, And it strikes you that you carry that sense of connectedness with you and try and help remind your founders of that, which I think is really important. So I
I
just
think it's
wanted to,
integrity, isn't it? I think,
yeah,
we all have a responsibility, but you do hear of stories of businesses, in their pursuit for maximization and absolute maximum profitability and all things that actually that integrity sometimes can disappear. And for me, as my style is that we want, as you absolutely perfectly put it, is carry these people who have got you there, carry them through, and that's invest in those people, train those people, wherever possible, recruit from within. And if you can't recruit from within, then you've got to bring experts in. And interesting, in the last few years, I've been quite focused on developing the people within the organisation who've got some long service, but B, bringing experts from other industries
yeah,
who are tried and tested. So, as an example, I've been bringing in sort of hospitality and retail people to the last few businesses I've run. And those industries are 100 years old. Yeah, and we've got to remember our industry, the fitness, wellness, and all of that is 30, 40 years old. It's still in its infancy. It's still growing. And what you get from retail people, my last ops director was from Boots and WH Smith's, Lois, and she knew nothing about the fitness industry at all. But what she knew was about customer centricity,
yeah,
the importance of our people, commercial achievement, and quality and standards. So just four things, and I'm sure there's 10 things, more things I could give you. But those four things she brought to the party were exactly what we needed.
yeah,
Getting standards set down, operating practices, digitization, making sure the people within the team, the right people, the right, round pegs in round holes.
of course.
And that sort of out of industry expertise is something I really continue to endorse for the benefit of the people who may have hit a ceiling and who have been in the industry, been loyal to the industry, are either going to get over promoted and fail, or are going to hit that glass ceiling and can't go beyond it. And therefore, we need to have a duty and responsibility to develop those people through these out of industry experts.
I think it's a really great point. I'm a great believer that diversity and inclusion in all its forms should be centre for any business, not just in terms of the moral and ethical case for it, but it just makes proper business sense to get as much different perspectives on things,
Yeah,
to then rationalise what you're hearing, to then focusing on action that drives forward, because you've got a good 360 view as much as possible before that decision is made. And when it comes to that type of learning, that cross-sector learning is often not always well received, whether that's a sense of ego for those who are being given it, sense of vulnerability, hidden insecurity, or blatant competition, or whatever it may be. There's always a reason why it's not accepted. So I think pushing that and driving that in the right manner is the right thing to do, because we all learn. I was taught very early on in kind of startup number one way back when was, you know, every adversity carries both a lesson and a blessing. And the adversity of getting information that challenges your current thinking will always force you to realize something. Now, whether you choose to accept that or not, that's down to you in terms of what it's teaching you, but there's always something.
yeah,
And
I like
so,
that.
so actively trying to find a different way that is conflicting sometimes with what you think or what you believe.
Yeah,
There's something to learn within that.
yeah.
So bringing other people into the environment to challenge thinking, to bring that experience in, I think that's something that is absolutely commendable and should be done more. And arguably, founders should embrace that more than ever before, particularly in the volatility of the world that we're in. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the only comment I'll make on that is that, our industry is still somewhat dominated by male,
so,
well,
yeah.
both members, but also management teams.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think a lot of companies are waking up to this and have been for the last 4 or 5 years, as you well know. But it's still underrepresented, and therefore such a huge opportunity for our industry is to get more females in both management and operational positions, but also as customers.
Yes.
So it shouldn't be any surprise that we got a shortage of one sex in our business, and
Mm.
actually the people running those businesses are of the male type. Again, such a big opportunity for our industry is to more equality, more inclusivity, as you absolutely rightly describe. And I was going down that road with female appoints that were great appointments as well. And
Mm.
I said this in Saudi, and I'll probably get shot for saying it, but the female teams were so much more effective than the guys' teams in Saudi. And the,
Why?
the
Why was that? What did you find? What was different? And don't worry, you won't get shot for it because you know
no,
it's.
yeah. No, it was just the culture of the ladies had not been allowed to work,
Mm.
and you know it was sort of the classic housewife scenario,
Okay. Yeah.
and when the shackles were released and they were allowed to work and drive and go to gyms and live a fairly normal life, you were able then to recruit these people that are relatively inexperienced but actually got incredible work ethic and
Oh,
appetite
absolutely. Yeah.
and have been managing their homes and managing their families and managing their husbands and managing their kids and
Mm.
were very organized and actually and because they got this new perspective and new access to the world of facilities. I know we shouldn't mock it, but you know, be able to drive a car, that this was so new, so you got this dynamo of
Mm.
energy coming from these people. So I was very quickly changing male management teams to a strong blend of females
Yeah.
with a minority male management team, and I was very pleased with the progress as well.
No, absolutely. I get that, and I think it's the basic things of that human centeredness again, isn't it? We and this is it's not about generalizing, but if a woman's at home and she's organizing the family and she's organized work, and I'm not saying that is her role specifically,
Yeah,
but she is. There's so much skills and
yeah,
responsibility and power in that role that men could learn from,
yeah,
very much so. And sometimes men become very egotistical and testosterone filled, and we don't see the world through the right eyes. But that blend of that sense of drive, purpose, responsibility, skills, we can all learn from both in order to achieve the outcome.
yeah.
So, making those decisions in the teams, I can see why you did that.
There's still too much misogyny in this world, and
Mm.
you know we've got to, and that will filter out over time and generations, of course. But
Mm.
it's no longer acceptable in the work environment to have
No,
those attitudes. So we've got to knock
totally
it out,
agree.
and just get let's just we've got to focus on the job in hand and
Mm.
not these sort of historical cultural things that have come through society over the last 50 years.
Absolutely. So, just as I'm, beginning to think about closing, I think one of the things that has really jumped out, Justin, is this sense of, as I say, sense of purpose. This unapologetic view on inclusive communities in terms of both the workforce, but also your stakeholders, and this sense of drive and resilience. I'm sure, you seem very cool, and I'm sure underneath the surface, when the proverbial hits the fan, it's just been a bit nuts. But, you know, understanding how to lead and be calm and to be resilient in times of challenge, that really comes across from your story and comes across from your journey. And I think whatever you go on to, I think, you know, founders are going to really resonate with that, teams are going to really resonate with that. But if there was a kind of overarching nirvana or future of the industry that you would love to see, what would that look like? If there were no kind of barriers or challenges, but if you felt health and fitness industry could do X or be Y, what would that be?
I think the real disappointment of our industry is the influence on government, and I'm sure many industries can say that exactly that
Mm.
phrase, that it just doesn't have the ear of government. And I think the cycle of our governments as well, changing every 5 years, it
Mm.
doesn't help either, because by the time they get to 2.5 years, they're over the peak and they're starting to think about the next election. So by the time we get our story across, which is usually 2.5 years, it's too late.
Mm. Mm.
And given what we spoke about at the very beginning of this, is we really need, this industry, the industry is crying out to help, where prevention is better than cure. And we just still got this, give them some tablets and fix them. And that just isn't going to wash. The only real saving grace, looking at a 30-year perspective, is the millennial and the Gen Z and Gen Alphas. I think they're the savior for our NHS, in so much as when they hit 60, 70, they won't be needing much NHS work. They're going to be in a far healthier place than me as a 55-year-old, or my dad who was 70, who smoked too much and drunk too much and didn't take care of themselves. So I think that there is a really optimistic future on that. But for the next 30, 40 years, where our pension pot, our UK pension pot, is already bled dry, it is a real challenge for the next 30 years, I think. So, and our sort of 50 through 80 generation is going to be heavily demanding on these services. So that's the nirvana. And I guess the final thing to close on for me is culture, which we touched on at the beginning, but culture is everything for me. And it's about every business having a very clear vision, mission, and values. I listened to the founder of Snapchat, a guy who said we, as a team, decided upon our values, which was about fun, which was about professionalism, which was about creativity. And we did the same in Fitness First. We as a team created our values about passion and that underpins recruitment. It underpins performance reviews, and making sure that the management team all lead by example, in line with the culture of the business. And you get that positive culture, and you will see your business thrive. And those businesses that are operating in the dark ages with the dictatorial carrot and the stick, I think that those days are numbered.
That's a really powerful thought, and it's almost as if it's not a choice anymore. Things are moving. Things have moved.
Yeah,
Things are only going to accelerate. If you stay still, you're actually going backwards, given the pace of change.
yeah.
So you have to get on that train, or you will literally be left at the station. So again, then Justin, I guess just in closing, could you share maybe a final thought? I mean, you really articulated a lot there, but is there a real final thought that you'd just like to share with those who may see this podcast and may want to get in touch with you? What would it that you'd maybe like to share with them?
Well, I'm really excited to actually speak to people and get a gauge for where they see their opportunities and how I hopefully could help them address those in the quickest possible way, in terms of that shortcut we spoke about, the
Yeah,
shortcut in the process.
yeah, yeah,
And it's all about communication. It's all about being clear with their strategy. I'm a great believer every business should have a business plan, strategy, call it what you will. That has been well thought through, has got team involvement, team curation, because you're more likely to achieve your strategy as a business if you've had the team involved and are bought into it, bought into the mission. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I want to work with founders and owners of businesses to achieve the best version of themselves. I know it sounds a bit of a cliche, but to achieve their goals in the quickest possible time. So I believe I can do that. Trying to get that blend of business performance, but with having all the right levers switched, is really important, and getting the right approach. We all can probably get to the most profitable company as quickly as possible, but has it got longevity if you've burnt all your people? So there's a lot of factors. It's a lot of things I'm practiced as an executive for the last 15 years, working some of the harshest environments for some of the hardest people, learning a lot of the lessons from those entrepreneurs who have been ultra successful, and putting it into practice.
excellent. Well, Justin, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know you're incredibly busy, so thank you for sharing this time with us today. I've certainly taken a lot from what you said. especially that kind of human-centeredness approach, that sense of culture, that sense of integrity in doing everything that you do. But that relentlessness and that drive to succeed, but do it in the most ethical, inclusive, and healthy way possible.
Good
And for
summary.
that, that's amazing. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome,
And,
Joel.
wish you the
Thank
very
you
best
very
of
much.
what you do.
All right. Cheers.
Take care now. Bye bye.
Bye.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate that.
Excellent. Well done, Joel.